The black car surrounded her before she could scream. Armed men stepped out in perfect formation, guns visible, faces cold. Mildred dropped her shopping bags, heart slamming against her ribs. Then the final door opened, and her husband stepped out, but not the janitor who kissed her forehead every morning. This man was shirtless, covered in tattoos like war paint, moving like he owned every breath in the city. He looked at the armed men and said in a voice she'd never heard before, "Your orders were not to frighten my wife." That's when Mildred realized she'd been sleeping next to a lie. The man she married wasn't a janitor. He was the most feared Korean Mafia boss in the city. And someone just exposed him. Welcome back to Ebony and Pearl Stories, where we uncover the truth hidden beneath beautiful lies. Before we dive deeper into Mildred's world, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss a moment of this story. Now, let's begin. It was supposed to be a normal Saturday. October sun warming her shoulders, a light breeze carrying the scent of roasted chestnuts from the corner vendor. Mildred had just left the boutique on 5th Street, cream-colored shopping bags dangling from her fingers. She'd bought a cashmere sweater she couldn't really afford, but Suk Jean had said the color would look beautiful on her, and she wanted to surprise him. She was smiling, thinking about dinner when the first black car appeared. Then the second, then 5 more, sleek, silent, expensive, forming a perfect wall around her on the sidewalk. Mildred froze. The bag slipped from her hands. Her breath caught in her throat as car doors opened in synchronized precision. Men stepped out, identical in their black suits, cold eyes hidden behind dark sunglasses, earpieces glinting in the afternoon light. They didn't speak. They didn't need to. Their presence alone was a threat. What? Mildred's voice cracked. What's happening? No one answered. The men simply stood there, creating a human barrier between her and the rest of the world. Then the final car door opened, and Mildred's heart stopped. Gwon Suk-jin stepped out like a king returning to his throne. But this wasn't her husband. This wasn't the man who made dad jokes over breakfast or fell asleep watching cooking shows on their worn-out couch. This man was shirtless, his suit jacket slung carelessly over one shoulder. His dark hair was slicked back with precision, and his body, his entire torso, arms, shoulders, was covered in tattoos. Elaborate dragons coiled around his ribs. Geometric patterns wrapped his biceps like ancient armor. Korean symbols she couldn't read blazed across his chest. He moved toward her with lethal calm, every step deliberate, every muscle coiled with controlled power. His eyes, those soft brown eyes that had gazed at her with such gentleness, were different now. Darker, colder. The eyes of a man who commanded fear, not love. The armed men parted for him without a word. When he reached her, he stopped inches away, close enough that she could smell his cologne, the same one he wore every day, the one she'd buried her face in 1,000 times. But everything else about him was foreign. He turned to his men and spoke in rapid Korean, his voice sharp with authority. "Your orders were not to frighten my wife." My wife. The word sounded like a warning, not affection. One of the guards bowed slightly. "Apologies, sir. We needed to secure the perimeter." Mildred couldn't breathe. Her mind scrambled to make sense of the scene. The cars, the guards, the tattoos, the command in his voice that made grown men obey without question. "Jean!" Her voice was barely a whisper. "What is this? Who are these people?" He looked at her then, and something flickered across his face. Regret, maybe, or pain, but it vanished too quickly to name. "Mildred!" "No." She stepped back, her legs trembling. "Don't Mildred me. Tell me what's happening. Right now." For 2 years, she'd known him as the gentlest man alive. The janitor who swept floors at the community college and came home smelling like industrial cleaner. The husband who fixed their sink when it leaked, who made her ginger tea when she had a cold, who kissed her forehead every single morning before leaving for his night shift. She remembered the way he'd proposed, nervous, fumbling with the ring, his hand shaking as he knelt in their tiny apartment kitchen. She remembered their wedding, small, simple, just the two of them and a courthouse official. She remembered the way he held her on their wedding night, like she was something precious, something he'd been searching for his entire life. That man was gentle, safe, hers. This man standing before her, half naked and tattooed and surrounded by armed guards, was a stranger. "I need you to listen to me," Sukjin said, his voice quieter now, but no less intense. "I'm not who you think I am." The shopping bag at her feet toppled over, spilling tissue paper onto the concrete. "Then who are you?" The question came out broken. He exhaled slowly, his jaw tightening. When he spoke, the words destroyed her. "I'm the head of the Guan Syndicate." Silence. The world seemed to stop spinning. The Korean Mafia? Mildred's voice rose, disbelief and terror mixing into something unrecognizable. "You're telling me you're a criminal?" "I'm telling you I've lied to you since the day we met." His honesty was brutal. The janitor job, the night shifts, all of it was a cover. "I took that job to hide after someone tried to assassinate me. I needed to disappear, to blend in, to become invisible. And I was part of your disguise." Tears burned in her eyes. "No." He stepped closer and she flinched. The hurt in his eyes was unmistakable. "You were never part of the plan, Mildred. I wasn't supposed to fall in love. I wasn't supposed to stay. But I did." One of his men approached, holding a tablet. He spoke in urgent Korean, showing Sukjin the screen. Whatever was displayed there drained the color from his face. When he looked back at Mildred, the Mafia boss had fully awakened. No trace of her gentle husband remained. "What?" she demanded. "What's happening?" He took her hand, the same hand he'd held 1,000 times, but now his grip was different. Tighter, desperate. "Someone breached your phone," he said quietly. "They've been tracking you. For weeks, Mildred. They know where you work, where you shop, where you sleep. They've been watching you to find me." The ground tilted beneath her feet. "Who?" "My enemies." His voice was steel. "They couldn't find me, so they found you. And now you're in danger because of me." Mildred's mind raced. All those normal days, going to work, grocery shopping, walking through the park, someone had been watching. Hunting. Waiting. "Get in the car, Mildred." It wasn't a request. "I'm done hiding, and you're not safe out here anymore." She looked at the black cars, the armed men, the stranger wearing her husband's face. Then she looked at his hand, still holding hers. And despite everything, the lies, the fear, the betrayal, his touch still felt like home. That terrified her most of all. If you believe Mildred deserves the truth and a chance at real love, not manipulation and lies, smash that subscribe button right now. Only people who support deception and betrayal won't subscribe. Drop a comment telling me what time you're watching this, because I need to know you're standing with Mildred, not the enemies trying to destroy her life. Let's grow this family together. The armored car moved through the city like a shadow, tinted windows blocking out the world Mildred thought she knew. She sat pressed against the leather seat, as far from Sukjin as the confined space allowed. He'd put on his shirt now, covering the tattoos, but she could still see them in her mind, dragons and symbols that told stories of violence she'd been too blind to read. "Where are we going?" Her voice sounded hollow. "Somewhere safe." He didn't look at her, his attention fixed on his phone as messages flooded in. Korean characters scrolled across the screen too fast for her to follow, but she caught words she recognized. Threat. Location. Secure. 20 minutes later, they pulled into an underground garage beneath a building she didn't recognize. More guards waited, weapons visible now that they were away from public view. Sukjin helped her out of the car, always gentle with her even now, and led her through steel doors that required fingerprint and retinal scans. The safe house was nothing like their small apartment. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the city, bulletproof glass reflecting the afternoon sun. Everything was high-tech, security monitors on every wall, motion sensors blinking red in corners, communication equipment that looked military-grade. Guards stationed at every entrance. Mildred stood in the center of the living room, feeling like she'd stepped into someone else's life. "Make yourself comfortable," Sukjin said, though his tone suggested comfort was no longer possible. "You'll be staying here until we neutralize the threat." Neutralize. She repeated the word like it was foreign. "You mean kill people?" His silence was answer enough. Mildred sank onto the couch, her mind racing backward through 2 years of marriage. Moments she dismissed as quirks suddenly took on sinister meaning. The way he'd caught a falling pan in midair with reflexes, Too fast for a janitor. The scars across his back she'd noticed once in the shower. He'd claimed a childhood accident, but now she saw them for what they were. Knife wounds. Bullet grazes. She remembered how he always scanned rooms before entering, positioning himself between her and the door. How he disappeared for hours on night janitor shifts and came home exhausted in a way that seemed deeper than mopping floors. The tattoos she'd glimpsed when he changed shirts. Elaborate, expensive, meaningful, that he always covered quickly while muttering about old mistakes. "You were never a janitor, were you?" she whispered. Suk-jin stood by the window, his back to her. "I was. For 2 years, I swept floors and fixed pipes and pretended to be invisible. Because that's what I needed to be. And me? Was I just part of your cover?" He turned then, and the pain in his eyes looked genuine. "No. God, no, Mildred. You were the one thing I never planned for." "Then explain." Her voice cracked. "Make me understand how you could marry me, sleep beside me every night, and lie about everything." He crossed the room and sat across from her, maintaining distance like he knew she needed space. "I met you 3 months after someone tried to kill me," he began. "I was recovering, hiding, trying to figure out who betrayed me. The janitor job was temporary, a way to disappear while my enemies thought I was dead. I wasn't supposed to talk to anyone, wasn't supposed to stay. But you did. Because of you." His voice dropped. "You smiled at me in the college hallway when I was mopping floors. Actually smiled, like I was a person worth seeing. Do you know how rare that is in my world? People either fear me or want something from me. But you just saw me." Tears burned in Mildred's eyes. "So you married me? Built a whole life on lies?" "I married you because I fell in love." The raw honesty in his voice made her chest ache. "I married you because you grounded me when my world was chaos. Because you made me remember what it felt like to be human." Before she could respond, one of his men burst into the room, holding a tablet. He spoke rapidly in Korean, and Suk-jin's expression turned to stone. "Show her," he ordered. The guard handed Mildred the tablet. Her hands shook as she scrolled through the images. Photos of her leaving the cafe where she worked, walking through the grocery store, unlocking her apartment door, time stamps from the past 3 weeks. Then came the recordings, her voice on phone calls, conversations with coworkers, even audio from inside their bedroom. "They've been watching you for almost a month," Suk-jin said quietly. "Tracking your movements, accessing your accounts. They sent me a message 2 days ago. Surrender yourself, or they take you." Mildred's stomach turned. "Why didn't you tell me?" "Because I was trying to handle it without terrifying you. I increased security without you knowing. Guards following you to work, monitoring your routes. But they're more organized than I expected." She looked up at him, this stranger wearing her husband's face. "What do they want?" "Me. Dead or compliant. You're just leverage." A new message appeared on the tablet, a threat so explicit it made Mildred's hands shake. They would take her, hurt her, use her to destroy him. Through the doorway, she saw more guards arriving. Then she saw him, the real him, in action. Suk-jin moved to a training area she hadn't noticed, stripping off his shirt again. He picked up weapons with practiced ease, moving through combat sequences that were deadly precise. No hesitation, no mercy in his movements. He barked orders in Korean, and men twice his size obeyed instantly. This was Boss Suk-jin, the Mafia leader who commanded armies and inspired fear. Not the gentle janitor who made her ginger tea. "Why didn't you trust me?" The question burst out of her. "Why didn't you tell me the truth?" He stopped mid-movement, chest heaving, and looked at her with eyes that held centuries of pain. "Because loving me marks you for death, Mildred. I wanted to give you 2 years of peace before you learned that truth." Before she could respond, every screen in the room flashed red. Silent alarm. Suk-jin's head snapped up. Perimeter breach. Mildred's blood turned to ice as armed men surrounded her, weapons drawn, and her husband transformed into someone she no longer recognized. The war for her life had begun. The alarm shrieked through the safe house like a death sentence. Red lights flashed across every surface as guards rushed into formation, weapons cocked and ready. Mildred's heart slammed against her ribs as Suk-jin moved with terrifying precision, barking orders in rapid Korean. "Get her to the panic room," he commanded. But before anyone could reach Mildred, gunfire shattered the bulletproof windows. Glass exploded inward. Armed men in black tactical gear rappelled through the openings, moving with military coordination. Suk-jin didn't hesitate. He grabbed a gun from the nearest guard and fired 3 shots. 3 bodies dropped before Mildred could scream. She'd never seen violence like this. Not in movies, not in nightmares. This was real. Blood splattered across marble floors. Men fought with brutal efficiency. And her husband, her gentle, soft-spoken husband, moved through the chaos like a demon unleashed. He didn't just fight. He destroyed. A man came at him with a knife. Suk-jin disarmed him in 2 moves, snapped his wrist, and drove the blade into his shoulder without blinking. Another rushed from behind. Suk-jin spun, fired, moved forward. No hesitation. No mercy. Mildred pressed herself against the wall, trembling, watching the man she married become someone unrecognizable. Except she was recognizing him. The reflexes she'd seen catch falling objects. The way he'd always positioned himself between her and danger. The controlled strength in every movement. He'd never been pretending to be gentle. He'd been suppressing a monster to protect her. "Clear!" one of the guards shouted in English. Suk-jin turned to Mildred, chest heaving, gun still in hand, eyes wild. "Are you hurt?" She couldn't speak, could only shake her head. He crossed to her in 3 strides, cupping her face with bloodied hands. "Mildred, look at me. Are you hurt?" "No," she whispered. "But you." "I'm fine." He released her, already moving. "Get her secured. Now." The attack lasted 9 minutes. 6 enemies dead, 2 captured. Suk-jin interrogated them in the basement. Mildred heard screaming through the walls but couldn't bring herself to care. She was numb. When he emerged an hour later, cleaned up but still wearing violence like cologne, his expression was grim. "The Black Phoenix Syndicate," he said, pouring himself whiskey with steady hands. "Led by a man named Kong Min-jun. He was my father's closest ally once. My brother, practically." Mildred sat on the couch, wrapped in a blanket despite the room's warmth. "What happened?" "He betrayed us." Suk-jin's voice was flat, emotionless. 10 years ago, my father led the Gwon Syndicate. We controlled trade routes, protected our people, maintained order. Min-jun wanted more power, more territory, more blood. When my father refused, Min-jun orchestrated a massacre. He paused, staring into his glass. I was 19. Came home from university to find my parents, my 2 younger sisters, and 12 of our people dead. Slaughtered in our own home. Mildred's breath caught. "Jean, I survived because I was late. Came home to corpses and found Min-jun still there, waiting to finish me." His jaw tightened. "I killed him first. Or thought I did. Turns out he survived, rebuilt in the shadows, and now he wants to finish what he started. And I'm his weapon against you." "Yes." The single word carried the weight of his guilt. The next 72 hours were a nightmare Mildred couldn't wake from. Guards escorted her everywhere, bathroom trips, meals, even sleep. Her phone had been destroyed, her laptop confiscated, her bank accounts frozen for security. She couldn't contact her friends, her coworkers, anyone from her old life. Normal was gone, replaced by surveillance cameras, armed men, and the constant awareness that people wanted her dead just to hurt the man she'd married. On the 3rd night, Suk-jin found her crying in the bedroom. "I want my life back," she whispered. "My boring, simple, safe life." He sat beside her, maintaining careful distance. "I know. I'm sorry. Sorry." Anger flared through her grief. "You chose this, Jean. You chose violence over honesty. You could have told me the truth, given me a choice. If I'd told you the truth 2 years ago, would you have stayed?" The question hung between them like smoke. "No," she admitted. "I would have run." "Exactly." His voice was quiet, devastated. "And I was selfish. I wanted you too much to let you go. I thought if I could just keep you separate from my world, if I could just love you in the spaces between the violence, Maybe we could have something real. But it wasn't real. Tears streamed down her face. It was built on lies. The love was real. He finally looked at her, and the raw pain in his eyes made her chest ache. Every morning I kissed your forehead. Every dinner we shared. Every night I held you. That was real, Mildred. I loved you more than I'd ever loved anything. I still do. Then why? Because if I didn't choose violence, you'd be dead. His voice sharpened. You think I wanted this? You think I enjoyed lying to you every day? I chose violence to keep you alive. I suppressed who I was because the alternative was watching you get caught in a war you never asked for. But I'm in it anyway, she whispered. I know. He stood, turned away. And I will never forgive myself for that. Before she could respond, his phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen, and every drop of color drained from his face. What? Mildred demanded. What is it? Silently, he handed her the phone. The video was time-stamped yesterday, before the attack, before everything. It showed Mildred leaving her workplace, keys in hand, completely unaware. The camera zoomed in on her face, tracking her movements with predatory focus. Then a red laser appeared, right between her eyes. The message below the video was in Korean, but Suk-jin translated, his voice hollow. We've been closer than you knew. Next time we won't miss. Mildred's hands shook so violently she nearly dropped the phone. They'd been that close. One trigger pull away from ending her life while she worried about rent and what to make for dinner. She looked up at Suk-jin, and for the first time, she understood the weight he'd been carrying alone. What do we do now? She whispered. His expression hardened into something terrifying and determined. Now, we go to war. If you believe Mildred deserves protection and justice, not to be used as a pawn by evil men like Kong Min-jun, smash that subscribe button. Comment, she deserves better if you stand against manipulators who destroy innocent lives. Only people who support violence against women won't engage. Let me know you're with us. The fire alarm screamed through the safe house at 3 a.m. Mildred jolted awake, disoriented, as guards rushed into her room shouting instructions in Korean and broken English. Emergency protocol. Controlled drill. Everyone to the stairwell. She didn't question it. After 3 days of constant threat, her survival instincts had been rewired to obey without thought. The stairwell was chaos. Guards moving in formation. Smoke machines creating realistic haze. Emergency lights flashing red. Mildred lost sight of Suk-jin in the confusion. Someone grabbed her arm, steering her downward. She assumed it was protection. She was wrong. The needle pierced her neck before she could scream. The world tilted, blurred, went black. Suk-jin realized what happened 6 minutes too late. Where is she? His voice cut through the dispersing smoke like a blade. Where is my wife? The head of security pulled up footage, or tried to. The cameras had been disabled during a 40-second window. Perfectly timed. Perfectly executed. Inside her, one of the guards whispered. Someone on our team. Suk-jin's fist connected with the wall, shattering drywall. He roared something in Korean that made grown men flinch, then overturned a steel table with his bare hands. Furniture exploded. Glass shattered. Violence erupted from him like a dam breaking. Then, suddenly, he went still. Deadly calm. He ripped off his shirt, exposing the tattoos that marked him as what he truly was, a king of violence, a leader of wolves. War mode activated. Find the traitor, he said quietly, his voice more terrifying than his rage. Bring him to me alive. I want to know everything before I kill him. His second-in-command stepped forward. Sir, they'll contact us with demands. I don't care about their demands. Suk-jin's eyes were black ice. I'll burn this entire city before they lay another finger on her. Do you understand me? Yes, sir. Then move. Mildred woke with her head pounding and her wrists bound to a metal chair. The room was concrete, a warehouse, maybe abandoned and cold. Blood crusted her lip where she'd been hit. Her shoulders screamed from the position her arms had been wrenched into. Footsteps echoed across the floor. A man emerged from the shadows, mid-40s, expensive suit, cruel smile. He crouched in front of her, tilting her chin up with false gentleness. Mildred Clark, he said in accented English, the woman who tamed Gwon Suk-jin. I've been very curious about you. Who are you? Her voice came out hoarse. Kong Min-jun, your husband's oldest enemy. His smile widened. Though husband might be generous. Did he tell you he abandoned you? That he chose his empire over your safety. You're lying. Am I? He pulled out a tablet, showing her photos. Suk-jin with a beautiful Korean woman, laughing, touching her arm, looking intimate. Taken 2 days ago. While you were locked away, he was entertaining. Old habits. Mildred's heart clenched, but her mind stayed clear. The photos looked real, but felt wrong. The lighting was off. Suk-jin's body language was stiff. Photoshopped, she said flatly. You'll have to try harder. Min-jun's smile faltered. You're naive. He's a criminal, Mildred. A killer. You think love matters to men like us. I think it matters to him. She met his eyes without flinching. And I think you're terrified of what he'll do when he finds me. For a moment, genuine fear flickered across Min-jun's face. Then he backhanded her. Suk-jin moved through the city like an avenging angel. He interrogated the traitor first, a young guard bribed with money and threats. The man broke in minutes, giving up locations, contacts, communication channels. Suk-jin made his death quick. He didn't have time for vengeance. He called contacts in Seoul, Tokyo, Los Angeles, allies who owed him favors, enemies who feared him more than they hated him. He tracked encrypted messages through dark web channels, traced phone signals, followed money transfers. Every lead brought him closer. He broke bones, shattered alliances, burned bridges he'd spent years building. None of it mattered. Only Mildred mattered. 12 hours after her abduction, he found the warehouse. Min-jun's message had been clear. Come alone or she dies. Suk-jin obeyed. He arrived shirtless, tattoos gleaming in the streetlight, a signal in the criminal world that he'd entered war mode. No negotiation. No mercy. Only blood. The warehouse door hung open like a mouth waiting to swallow him. He walked in anyway. Guards surrounded him immediately. 8 men, armed, trained. Suk-jin moved before they could fire. His knife found the first throat. His gun took the second. His hands broke the third's neck. He fought like a demon, precise and brutal, until bodies littered the concrete and blood painted the walls. Then he saw her, Mildred, tied to a chair, bruised and bleeding but alive. Her eyes found his across the carnage, and something broke in his chest. Jean, she whispered. He crossed to her in seconds, cutting through the ropes with trembling hands. The moment she was free, she collapsed into him, and he caught her like she was the only thing tethering him to humanity. You came, she breathed against his chest. Always. His voice cracked. Always, Mildred. I will always come for you. She pulled back just enough to cup his blood-splattered face. I knew you would. Behind them, slow applause echoed through the warehouse. Kong Min-jun stepped from the shadows, gun drawn, smiling like the devil himself. Touching, he said. But did you really think I'd make it that easy? Suk-jin moved Mildred behind him, his body a shield. This ends now, Min-jun. Oh, it's far from over. Min-jun backed toward a service door, guns still trained on them. You got her back, yes. But now she knows the truth. That loving you means living in constant danger. That she'll never be safe. That your love is her death sentence. He disappeared through the door, his laughter echoing back. This war has just begun, old friend. And next time I won't miss. The door slammed shut. Suk-jin pulled Mildred closer, his heart racing with rage and relief, knowing Min-jun was right about one terrible thing. As long as Suk-jin lived, Mildred would never truly be safe. The private doctor finished bandaging Mildred's wrists in silence. Minor injuries, he'd said. Bruises would fade in a week. The split lip would heal. Her body would recover. Her life, however, would never be the same. Suk-jin sat outside her door like a guard dog, refusing to leave even when his men insisted he needed rest. Through the crack in the doorway, Mildred watched him. Head in his hands, shoulders rigid with tension, tattoos visible where his torn shirt hung open. He looked like a man preparing for loss. She knew what he was thinking. That she'd leave now. That she'd finally seen too much, understood too deeply, and would choose safety over love. Part of her wanted to. The smart part. The part that had survived chaos her whole life by knowing when to run. But a larger part, the part that remembered gentle kisses and ginger tea and a man who'd loved her so completely he'd tried to hide a war to protect her. That part couldn't let go. 3 hours later, after the doctor left and the guards changed shifts, Sukjin finally entered her room. He'd cleaned up, changed clothes, covered the tattoos, trying to look like the janitor again. But Mildred saw through it now. "How are you feeling?" His voice was careful, distant, like I was kidnapped by a psychopath and rescued by my Mafia boss husband. She said it flatly, without humor. He flinched. "Mildred!" "Don't!" She held up a hand. "Don't apologize again. Don't tell me you're sorry. Just tell me the truth. All of it. No more hiding." So he did. He told her about falling in love with her in the college hallway, how her smile had cracked something open in his chest he thought had died with his family. He told her about the war he was hiding from, the decision to stay when he should have run, the agony of lying to her every single day while loving her more than his own life. "I tried to keep you separate," he said, his voice breaking. "I thought if I could just love you in the quiet moments, if I could give you 2 years of peace before reality destroyed us, maybe it would be enough. Maybe you'd have enough good memories to forgive me when the truth came out. And now," Mildred asked quietly, "now you deserve better." He stood, turning away. "You deserve a quiet life with a good man. Someone who doesn't bring violence and death to your doorstep. Someone who won't get you killed just by loving you. So you're giving up on us? I'm setting you free." His hands clenched into fists. "I'll arrange protection, a new identity if you want, money to start over anywhere in the world. You can have the life you should have had before I ruined it." Silence filled the room like smoke. Then Mildred stood cross to him and placed her hand flat against his chest, right over the dragon tattoo. She could feel through his shirt. "You lied," she said softly. "You deceived me. You pulled me into a war I never asked for." "I know, but you also loved me." Her voice strengthened. "You protected me. You fought for me. You walked into certain death to save me. And I'm not leaving." Sukjin's breath caught. "You don't know what you're saying." "I know exactly what I'm saying." She looked up at him, eyes fierce. "I'm choosing you, Jean. All of you. The gentle man who makes me tea, and the dangerous one who kills to protect me. I'm choosing this life, this chaos, this love, because it's real. Maybe it's the first real thing I've ever had." "Mildred, if you stay, you'll never be safe." "I was never safe." The words burst out of her. "I grew up with an addict father and a mother who worked herself to death. I've been surviving my whole life. At least with you, I'm surviving for something that matters." His eyes searched hers, desperate and hopeful. "Are you sure?" "I'm sure." She pressed closer. "But I have conditions. No more lies. Ever. No more double life. If I'm in this, I'm in this. Full partnership. Full truth." For the first time in days, Sukjin smiled, real and devastated and full of love. "Full truth," he agreed. "I promise." Then he kissed her like she was oxygen, and he'd been drowning. The next 2 weeks transformed everything. Sukjin restructured the entire organization. He eliminated corrupt guards, strengthened alliances, and brought Mildred into strategy meetings where men twice her age learned to respect her insights. She had a mind for patterns, for reading people, for seeing angles they'd missed. She also started training self-defense, weapons handling, tactical awareness. If she was going to survive in this world, she'd do it on her own terms. Again, her trainer barked as she executed a disarming technique. Mildred moved faster this time, more confident. Sukjin watched from the corner, pride evident in his expression. She was becoming something new. Not a victim, not a pawn, a partner, an equal. 1 month after her kidnapping, they stood together on the penthouse rooftop overlooking the city. Sukjin had stripped down to just pants, his tattoos gleaming in the lights of the skyline. Mildred wore simple jeans and his shirt, feeling more at home than she ever had in their old apartment. "Kang Minjun is still out there," Sukjin said quietly. "This isn't over." "I know." Mildred leaned into him as his arm wrapped around her waist. "But we'll face him together." "Together," he echoed, the the words sounding like a prayer. She looked up at the man she'd married, dangerous and devoted, violent and gentle, hers in ways she was still discovering. "I didn't marry a janitor," she whispered. Suk Jean pulled her closer, pressing a kiss to her temple. "No, you married me." The city sprawled beneath them, full of threats and possibilities. Somewhere out there, enemies plotted. Alliances shifted. Wars waited to be fought. But on that rooftop, with the man she loved and the strength she'd found within herself, Mildred felt something she'd never experienced before. Power, not over others, over her own destiny. The janitor's wife was gone. In her place stood a woman who'd walked through fire and chosen to stay burning. And God help anyone who tried to break her again. If you believe love is worth fighting for, even when it's messy, dangerous, and imperfect, hit that subscribe button and join the Ebony and Pearl Stories family. Comment, "I choose love over fear," if you stand with Mildred's courage. Share this story with someone who needs to hear that sometimes the most dangerous choice is also the most powerful one. Thank you for being here, beautiful souls. Until the next story, remember, you are stronger than you know.